Right, afternoon, Yemisi.
Afternoon, Ade.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you very much.
Good. Thank you for welcoming me into the doctor's room here at the
Newham Centre for Mental Health.
Newham Centre for Mental Health. We've known each other for years, nearly all our lives, as our mums are best friends.
Yeah.
From back in Nigeria.
Yeah.
This is going to be a conversation about our life and times in East London, or at least yours.
Okay.
Interesting to capture, your journey now as a
doctor. Foundation year 1.
Foundation year doctor. Congratulations, that's
Thank
big.
you very much.
Here, right in East London. So I'm so proud to see you here. Both our families as well have had experiences here in Newham. Over the years, when it was Newham General, now Newham University Hospital. There's a lot to discuss. So perhaps starting from the beginning, what's your earliest memory of East London? So you lived in Custom House first, or still do?
Still do. So my parents used to live in Ilford initially, but when I was born, I was actually born in Custom House in off Freemasons Road in our old house. And I was actually born at Newham University Hospital as well. So when you talk about 360, or is it 180 moment? It's a real It's a real 360 moment. Yeah. So I was born there. I lived in Nigeria initially for a few years. I think I was about 5 years old. But I came
with mum or with another.
With my grandparents. So I was sent back. Back then, our parents, it wasn't easy for them. I know my mum was hustling. Your mum was also here supporting her and things like that. So I went back a couple of years, stayed with my grandparents. Then my parents said, okay, I'm a bit more settled now. I'm still hustling, but we can at least have the...
We can deal with at least one.
We can deal with at least them. So I came back over and I started school at Rosetta Primary School in reception. And honestly, I cried for the first week. That's my earliest memory of being in East London.
Did you think the grandparents that were looking after you, your grandma that were looking after you, was your mum? Because that's the story they tell about me, where so my mum had me in mind Nigeria, and then she came to London, and they didn't bring me over till about 2, till they were settled. And when my grandma left me at the house in Plaistow, I was crying after her, saying mummy, because I thought it was my mum. Yeah.
So it was. I don't think I thought she was my mum. But definitely there was that bond there. So when my grandparents left, I was a bit confused because it's I'm now in a different country with these people that I don't see every day. What's going on here? And then there's all these people that don't look like me as well, which is also a aspect of it. But I did settle eventually, and I would say I had a great time in East London, had friends from different backgrounds, for the most part, my childhood is fantastic. I know you see all these things in the news about, East London is this, that, or the other, yobs, what do they call them? Chavs, very slurs and things. But honestly, my British friends, Nigerian friends, Jamaican friends, I had a fantastic time. And all of it has kind of made me who I am today. And I think that's a pretty great person. So
Interestingly on that, because I was in a conversation with someone else the other day where it basically, I think the perspective I had, obviously living in it, you think it's fine and normal. But when you compare it with someone else and they were like, oh, I never had that. But, some of the things I experienced and you may have experienced was normalised. Are you 100%, do you still have that as true to yourself that it was fine? Or?
Do you know what? I think in the early primary school days, I think it was definitely fine. I think it's not, primary school's very uncomplicated, isn't it? It's go to school, eat, play, learn your timetables, so that was fine. But I think when you start getting to secondary school and things get a bit more, I guess, complicated, not complicated, but education is a bit more varied things that you do. It's when you now meet your friends in uni that maybe went to Epsom College, and then you realise, oh, wow, okay, we didn't do that. Or maybe my chemistry teacher wasn't meant to tell us that they smoked crack. Maybe I have to edit that out.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you went to secondary school in East London?
I went to secondary school in East London.
You don't have to name it here. That's
Okay.
Secondary school in East London.
Yeah.
And you're still living in Custom House?
Still living in Custom House, yeah.
And the area, how has it changed, or how are you noticing it's changing?
Let's not eat, with the changes, massive changes obviously over the years. And I think for me, the feelings like the feelings regarding the changes that happen are a bit up and down, because obviously in 2006, or I take 2004 to about 2008, there was a lot of crime, a lot of violence, obviously a lot of the stabbings, just generally, I wouldn't say I've ever felt unsafe, but I know for a lot of like other young like guys and things like that, with a lot of the violence in the area. And then now obviously you have Pontoon Dock, you have all these new shiny new flats, you don't have youth centres really where people are hanging around anymore, which is not a good thing. And I think sometimes there's an element of, well, I can go and get like a nice, I don't know, white chocolate mocha in some gentrified cafe somewhere, which is nice for me, and I still live in East London. But then there is also an element, the other side of that, sorry, is that there are people that have been, I guess, like displaced or pushed out through like rent prices going up, and there isn't what you enjoyed about the area, the multiculturalism, the diversity, the kind of chaos to a certain degree is starting to die down, kind of what made East London. So yeah.
Interesting. Maybe if I pick up on one of the first things you said about the experiences you see of other black men, and yeah, I assume from a little bit of a distance, yeah, some of the stop and searches that me and my mates were kind of exposed to, encountered, experienced. I don't know if you have any reflections or thoughts on seeing that, and again, was that just normalised for you, or did you think that's a shame, or actually it's on probability it's fair because on balance a high percentage of them might be involved in kind of bad activity anyway, so it's just the police doing their job? Just interested in how a black woman saw black guys being stopped and searched, and what you might have thought about that.
No, it was something that I think outraged me from young. I've never been a very passive person, so I think even if, for me, I was very hyper aware of it, so if I was with friends and the police were bothering them, I'd immediately speak up about it, but like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Because I think as I've gotten older, the feelings, when I could put words to how I was feeling, I think I just felt that you're basically stealing the child. There was a lot of elements of probably stealing a bit of childhood away from young black boys, when immediately you see them as a criminal just because of the way like they look. And I understand the argument of you have to try and keep the roads safe, you have to because of the rates of gang crime, but some of it didn't feel rationalized. It didn't feel rational. So when you say, okay, who are you looking for, what's the description, you're looking for someone that is 6 foot. My friend is the same height as me, I'm 5'2", so how did he get here? So there's that element of just criminalizing and making like black men the villain, and that's not something that I'm ever going to be in support of. Yeah.
Okay, so still staying on your personal views on black men, black boys in East London, in London today. On balance, again, I think just generalising stats, you can make up stats to back anything, but I'll make up a stat to back my point. That I think generally black women are performing better in professional career sectors than black men. How does that play out in your circles, in your F1 doctor, which may not be more atypical of black men? Is that something you see, or is that an overgeneralization that you think people kind of...
I think generally for medicine, I have to speak separately, because over the years more women have gone into medicine than men, so it's always like a 60% of your year group are women, 40% maybe like are men, or like a 55-45 split. But even that being said, you know how it usually is. You can have more women in medicine, but when you start getting more senior, or you look at more competitive posts or management, women are still sort of underrepresented in that. I think within my circles, I would say my male friends are also doing very well. I think a lot of them didn't select medicine because of other reasons. In terms of what is lucrative, so a lot of my male friends and what isn't. So a lot of my male friends are like maybe banking, consulting, and they tend to be doing quite well for themselves. And I think sometimes, even if you grow up in East London, when you go to uni, you start hanging around particular circles, you can end up living in a bit of a bubble. So I'd say all my black friends around me are doing very well for themselves, but I'm also aware that isn't necessarily a representation of all the other black people that kind of grew up in East London. And that's something I do think about from time to time, how, yeah, my friends are doing very well, but you can definitely live in this bubble of Russell Group University, you know, good job, working in all these sort of professional careers, and forget that there's so many people I went to school with that just working, didn't go to university, kind of maybe had children early, maybe working in jobs that people don't see as like professional, maybe blue collar jobs. And they're probably the majority more than my friends.
Which has some alignment with the other point you were making about the new builds of pontoon dock, etc. And there's something that weighs on my heart when we talk about these kind of things, which is, you know, building or keeping a community, a village where new people you know, embed successfully and well into an existing incumbent area. Yeah, and any thoughts on that, particularly as someone who's literally living on the border of new builds, and you see it across the river, across the water, where these new builds, but you're still in the legacy old bit of Custom House.
You know what it is? I think that's why I say the mixed feelings come from, because there is this element of the more these new builds come, the more money and activities come. So there's a climbing wall in Canning Town, and with this really nice like cafe, all these things that are really nice experiences, or I can go to the docks and have a drink and have an open mic night on the barge, and open. It's just, you know,
Our
things that was
never,
exactly things that was
yeah.
You know, so there is an element that this newness, this freshness, this hipster, you know, I guess this hip vibe is coming to East London, that can be nice. But I think beneath that, what is actually more concerning, and I think what outweighs it for me, is like I said, the kind of displacement. So I have family friends, or I take friends from the area that, you know, you're looking for to be moved by the council when they're offering you a place in Bradford. Meanwhile, your brother has, like, you know, a mental health problem, support system is here, everybody's here, and you want to move them over there. I've had an experience with a patient when I was trying to dig into how to help them get housing, and they've been in East London their whole life, and they also have a mental health problem, have their support here, but they have some other issues why they can't be in the area. The place they wanted to offer them was somewhere in the Midlands where they don't know anyone, because the accommodation isn't enough, I guess, in Newham, and its priority is probably private rented, all these, again, new shiny buildings where a particular group of people is who they want to attract. So as much as, again, like I said, I love my rock climbing and my matcha latte and things like that, it's kind of concerning how things are going. Yeah.
And maybe a segue into health here now as well, because you know, with an increasing population, then there's more demand on health services, on policing, water. Who pays for it? I think, you know, in the first 1 or 2 years there was a direct, you know, attributable cost in some of the management service fees, etc. But that goes away after some time. But anyway, let's stick with health, which we both know. And before we get into the health of patients that you serve and you see, just describe your medical journey a little bit. So uni, medicine. What attracted you to medicine? I mean, was it mum and dad saying that you have to be a doctor, or was there something else?
You know what's interesting? My dad didn't want me to become a doctor. I think he saw a lot of things, the stress, the pay package, and he was like, this is not worth it. So initially, actually, from year 9, it's about 14 years old, to about 17 years old, I wanted to be a hedge fund, like, manager.
And that was 14.
At 14. Hedge fund. And
Goldman
I think
Sachs in your
literally 14, in my brain at 14.
Fair enough.
And that was because we had mentors that came from HSBC in Canary Wharf that were doing this project. I forgot the name of it with us, but I'll never forget this guy called Nigel. And they would take us to Canary Wharf, shiny big buildings. We spoke to people that were had different positions in Canary Wharf. We were having dinner in, like, the restaurants in the HSBC building where they have their private clients. And, you know, like, I'm from East London. On a Sunday, I go to Harvester for a treat. Like, you know, I don't go to... So I'm seeing all this, and I think, again, paired with the fact that my parents instilled that belief in me that I could do anything I want to do anyway. So it wasn't impossible for me to be a hedge fund manager, but it wasn't for the right reasons. It was just, for me, it's like, okay, so this is how much they earn, this is what they do, this is the amount of, you know, this is the lifestyle they live. And then when I did my internship at HSBC for 2 weeks, and then I did.
And how old were you when you did this internship now?
15.
Okay.
Yeah, 15. And then I also did like a day or two, another like I think it wasn't Goldman, it was like Morgan Stanley or something like that.
Again on the wharf.
On the wharf, yeah, on the wharf. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of boring. Yeah, I was like, oh no, this is I like being around people, like to a degree. Anyway, I like I really like the science and the problem solving around that. So I was just like, oh, this isn't really for me. And then medicine was motivated by, I can tell you specifically the point when I realised I was gonna apply for medicine.
And this was
and I wrote it to my personal statement.
UCAS statement.
This was legit. This wasn't even like, it's not like, oh yeah, you know, from when I was young I was playing with doctors. No, it wasn't, because I didn't think I was going to be.
Cool.
But when I was 17, I went to a photography exhibition by this guy called David Cotterill, this photographer, and he was a war and military photographer. And he basically did a series where he was taking pictures in the Camp Bastion's medical base, so where they manage all the like wounded soldiers, and he did one specifically and told stories about the soldiers in the psychiatry sort of element, which is again strange because it's not that I want to be, but I'm now working in psychiatry. He told the stories about obviously how kind of underfunded that was and what the soldiers are going through and how they're managed and limited resources compared to like the physical health part of Camp Bastion. And it was just so, it was really bizarre because I kind of knew about medicine before, but then I was like, no, I feel like this is how I want to help people. That was it. Honestly, I don't want it to be like a dramatic moment, but I can pinpoint the facts when I was like, okay, this UCAS application is going forward in terms of medicine.
Yeah, nice.
Whether that was a reality I met when I got into university to study is different, but yeah. So then I applied the first time round, didn't get the grade. So then I got an offer, but I didn't actually make the grade. So I got an offer to UCL. I got an offer to, I can't quite remember now. I think it was Liverpool. But I missed the grades entirely. So I had to take a gap year. And then I reapplied for a foundation year programme at Southampton Uni, which takes people, it's called widening access. So if you grew up in an area like Newham, other boroughs,
deprived
like
areas.
Yes, yeah. Let's say it basically.
Call it what it is.
Call it deprived. They call it widening access. Yeah, if you grew up in like a deprived area like Newham, then you're eligible. You have parents that didn't are your first generation to university, which wasn't my case. Mine was I grew up in Newham. Then went for the interview, got the place there. Just kept working the rest of my gap year. I wish I was doing all this gap year abroad where I was travelling, but I had to work. So I kept working. And then, yeah, got in. And then I started my journey from that point. My journey wasn't the most straightforward. You know all about this. It was a bit...
We can just fast forward.
Yeah, we fast forward.
It
was a bit topsy-turvy. And it was only mainly because I didn't really know if I still wanted to do medicine. I had a few experiences. I was like, do I want to do this? Then I did a bit of global health and I was like, I'm going to do that, forget the NHS. I'm just going to go and work in policy. And then what's interesting is I've come back round now because I've started my foundation year training and I've completely loved working with patients. So
amazing.
And at the end of the day, it was the right thing for me.
Let me go back to the widening access stuff first.
Yeah.
So someone who I suppose has benefited from one widening access scheme, but then also participating in another, the HSBC Canary Wharf one, because that felt like a diverse inclusion thing from them, right?
Yeah.
To go out to the local.
What's the word they call it? Social corporate responsibility. They do that. Yeah, that basically was. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounded like that.
Yeah.
Any views on that now? Whether it's it's still needed, or because I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but it also feels like a little bit of it's approaching the challenge of inclusion and inequitability of access from a skills deficit point of view, that these people don't have it. So from up here, let's pull them up as opposed to, fixing the root of the problem. But I suppose every company wants to be seen to be doing its own thing.
Yeah.
But as someone, who's gone through it and benefited from it in some degree, I don't know if you have any other perspectives on whether it needs to continue or how it might need to change for the future.
I think those widening access schemes are important. So I think they need to work at the same time. So everything's working at the same time as trying to influence, I guess, sort of like educational policy or more like grassroots things that affect the outcomes that we see or the need for those kind of projects. Because I think as a university, how much can you really do to, can I put it, to fix the problems that are starting in primary school? But what you can do is say, okay, we understand that you might be at a disadvantage, so we're going to lower the grade boundaries and provide you with support when you come to our university and give you an extra bursary and give you an extra year to acclimatise to university life and maybe have a part-time job. And the schemes that are done really well, they tend to try and accommodate that. And I think we don't want to throw that away necessarily.
Okay.
At the same time, I think it's still important to kind of push and advocate for, okay, let's look into when you've got all these, is it the SIL report that comes out and looks at the kind of gap in attainment between kids from certain backgrounds and other backgrounds. How do we fix that on maybe a policy on the ground? But I don't think that's the responsibility of the higher education institution.
Okay.
And even if it was, what can they do apart from what they're doing now?
Yeah, because you're right,
Yeah.
because by sometimes the difference in attainment and ability is already...
It's already been established way back.
Yeah.
So I think,
I'm going to purposefully ignore the SIL report for lots of other reasons.
I'm not saying it's a good report, but I was saying like based on what we can see there, is that really going to be what I was trying to use the stats from there? I'm not.
Yeah, I'm going to ignore.
Don't
that.
rate them just for the just for
no
the,
comment. But, did you ever feel a sense of otherness, like as someone who has come through on the widening access participation and others, or I assume that wasn't spoken about? I mean, was it? Or?
I think because we came in on widening access for the first year, it's yourself. Well, the way it was done in my university, it's yourself and others that came in widening access. So a lot of my friends still this day that are medics also came in through the widening access program. And then I think by the time you join the year of like the regular program, then maybe there are points where you feel othered, but I feel like you've already had time. I had time to integrate myself into like university friends, meet people from different courses and different things like that. So you didn't really feel as othered. But there's definitely situations when you're just like, yeah, we've lived different lives entirely. Like this, you meet people that are like, yeah, I'm going sailing, and I'm going, all these kind of things, and I don't have why.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Do you? I don't know how active you are in professional societies like the Royal Colleges and the unions of doctors, etc. There's in those professional circuits, there's some of that class divide, otherism exists. Do you feel it, or?
I don't think having just started, I think I'm not as active as I want to be, but I have plans to be a bit more active. But speaking to people who are active in terms of like, your BMAs, Royal Society of Medicine, all these kind of things, you could definitely, I know people that have had experiences of feeling othered, even if it's accidental. So I have consultants or senior doctors that are black. You've gone to conferences and someone's mistaken them for the security guard because they're quite young. Like, I have friends that are like male doctors they're like the surgical registrar, and I've met them and they're black, just to make that clear. And people are like, oh, are you the mental health nurse doing 1-to-1 for like the aggressive patient or something like that? Meanwhile, it's like, no, I'm the surgical reg, I'm just looking for... So it's definitely still that. I mean, and it's interesting because it happened to me, it's happened to me a lot of times. Every time it's like, are you the nurse, are you the nurse, are you the nurse? All the time. People could say, are you the nurse? I could wear my stethoscope around my neck when I'm on medicine. It's like, are you the nurse? And I had it done, it was done to me by a doctor, an ED consultant, who I actually really like and respect. And she's so gung-ho about inclusion and diversity. And she does everything to try and support her trainees. But she'd seen me a few times before. She came up to me and she's like, oh, why haven't we started this? And she was giving me instructions like I was the nurse. And then I don't know what happened. She sort of then realised, she went red in the face. She was like, I'm so sorry. It's not you. I want to, I'm so sorry. No. She felt so bad. And it's so difficult because then how do you tackle these things? Because this is also a woman that is advocating for ethnic minorities, but she's all the things that maybe might make you feel othered in the workplace, she's also perpetuating it without knowing.
So the element of human nature, and subconscious, unconscious bias, and prejudices which we may not have been able to shed completely. Interesting to hear how it happens in the medical workplace. And do you think that there is less forgiveness of those natural habits and natural practices that perhaps hinders the debate? Because in some of these diversity and inclusion debates, I wonder, like people don't acknowledge that there is a human inclination to think a certain way about something, and now for me the kind of action and where the attention needs to be drawn is what we do then with that thought, because I don't think you can stop a natural thought about I see this person and I think X, Y, Z. It's then what you do and to make sure that doesn't prejudice your interventions or the things that you do to that person. I don't know what you think about that.
I'd have to agree with you to a certain degree, because I think not acknowledging your own prejudices can actually hinder the care that you want to give to a patient. So I think just taking it back, we all have prejudices. For me, there are maybe particular patients that will come in and maybe they say certain things, they have a particular background, history, ethnicity, and there is a prejudice at the back of your, there is an assumption that you can make about particular things. If you don't acknowledge that assumption and then work backwards from it, or sort of, just, okay, that's not right, and have that conversation with yourself, then I think you're doing yourself and your patient a huge disservice, because you don't have an awareness of the ways to which you have your own prejudice. So for me, I think there needs to be an allowance for that. And it wasn't necessarily that she mistook me that was the problem. And the reason I didn't have a problem was because of how she came around after. Like, she had conversations like, Yemisi, I'm sorry about that. I just maybe thought you were someone else. And again, I have to ask myself, a lot of the nurses I work with are black. I was literally wearing a hoodie because it was cold in ED. We all wear scrubs nowadays as well. And I was facing away from her.
And did you have a face mask on?
She made the assumption I had a face mask on. Even if she knows me, sometimes your brain isn't autopilot. She's not doing it to be spiteful. She's not doing it to be mean or anything like that. And she means well. And this is someone that I can vouch for, and I know they mean well. So I can't hold her to a cross for something that is just, she probably doesn't work with as many black doctors as she does with black nurses. So it's easy for her to do that. So I completely agree with you. I think there needs to be space for this sort of, we all have human nature, prejudices, but then I also think we can't just accept that and sit on our hands. It has to be, okay, now we know that, how do we, undo that, or try and live in a society where you have narratives that counter these prejudices, so eventually the human nature that comes up isn't, the prejudice that comes up is a negative one.
And again, in a perfect world, you would go back to the beginning in your child rearing years to address that. I've got stories for days on what my 4-year-old daughter is going through in school, and the things she's picking up unconsciously, subconsciously. But let's go back to your medical training then, and on this EDI point, what was there any equality, diversity, inclusion stuff in your training? As you this is how you should do more diverse history note taking or anything like that, or what was your experiences like?
It was a big thing at that point in medical school, because for a lot of black students, I'm thinking, because you asked that question, there's a particular point where I think everyone realised, well, you're not training us in a way that is going to allow us to work with patients that are really diverse. So I don't know if you remember this whole brown skin matters movement a couple of years ago, and I think it came from the fact that we started to realise that in dermatology or even in paediatrics, a lot of the imagery or pictures that you're shown is just, white skin, white children, everything, and you don't, which was quite dangerous, because I think we started to then realise that you're sending people out to work in diverse communities in Bradford, in Birmingham, in London, in that have to be responsible for patients that come from different backgrounds, and you're not equipping them with the knowledge to do so, which is dangerous for the patients that you're going to work with. So I think there's, as much as there is a lot of we are diverse and we're inclusive, the teaching doesn't reflect that. I mean, we had a dermatology consultant that still came in and was classifying black skin as Negro skin on some of his slides.
You're joking.
I'm being so serious.
Okay.
Do you see what?
Yeah.
On some of his slides, and I think it's just people feel as if they're being more. Yeah, everybody's moving forward as long as you're ticking particular boxes. I think that's what people think, and nobody's really looking into, okay, but are we really inclusive in the way that we're making sure we teach and we equip future doctors to, you know, to work with people. Yeah. So.
Okay. Talking about future doctors now, let's fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of conversation around the policy space, around training doctors, making sure we have enough doctors. I see some of the stats about differences between number of doctors in secondary care versus those in primary care. Love to get your thoughts on it. I mean, obviously we're employed by the NHS, Department of Health, so we have to be a little bit politically sensitive. Yeah. But as far as you can say, just as someone who chose to stay in medicine, what's your perspective on some of these things?
I think it's understandable. You know, the industrial action, the whole conversation that's currently being had amongst junior doctors, and there is an overwhelming sort of vote or lean towards voting for industrial action. And I think it just comes from a lot of doctors being frustrated by maybe not feeling that you're getting adequate training, that you're just being a service provider, you're not really being trained adequately enough to become like the specialist that you want to be and look after your patients in that way. There is a lot of dissatisfaction with the pay, so there's a real-time erosion in pay over the years. So obviously doctors' pays haven't adjusted for inflation in like the past 20 years, and I think the morale is just overall quite low in terms of, you know, staying. And
sorry, and on the service provider, that's really interesting, because I think I know what that means, but for some people who may not know what that means, just expand on that a little bit more. Like, as in, you know, just providing a service, and what does that look like and feel like?
So I think service provision looks like you've gone the whole week kind of maybe just like putting out fires or doing administrative tasks, and there is no push to have maybe senior teaching, maybe to show you how to really use this ultrasound machine or kind of, I wish I could get a better example, but it's just, you're not doing things, the training isn't structured in a way to make you a better doctor that has the necessary skills. It is almost like you provide a service, and if you happen to pick up the skills as you go along, then good for you. And if you don't, why is that not completing your portfolio? Even if you hadn't had the time, you know. So it's that kind of, it is not built in a way where it's like we're going to make sure that you have these kind of skills that equip you to be the doctor you want to be. It's just go and do what we need you to do, and if you happen to find the opportunities, you do, and if you don't, then there'll be a meeting for disciplinary.
That's tough.
Yeah. So you have a lot of you have people going to Australia. You have people quitting altogether. So there's quite a few people I know, my friends, that are so passionate about medicine. They've gone straight through straight A students, top percentile, and they've quit completely, as in not gone to Australia, not gone anywhere.
And that's burnout, or it just like the money outweighs
burnout.
the
Mostly burnout. Because I think even with the pay, you'd be surprised. People are not willing, but I think if you feel like you're doing a good job and you feel like people generally support you and the government support you, people aren't asking to be millionaires, don't get me wrong, but when the pay is rubbish, don't know, let's use that, the pay isn't inadequate, let's use that to be more, because the pay is inadequate, the conditions aren't great.
Particularly inadequate for your skill set and the educational investment you've had. So it's inadequate for the skill set, the morale is like low, you don't really feel supported, you don't feel like you're getting the training that you require, then the motivation to stay is low. There's no, you know, why are you going to commit yourself to a 6, 7, 8, 13-year training program, depending on what you're doing, where you don't really have stability, you have to move around the country. Again, pay is like a real issue, you're always burnt out, you're overworked, you're working with it's always short staff. Why do you want to commit yourself to that? And then rotas, holidays as well, like not really within your
control. Not within your control. If you have a family and you're still moving here and there for training, and you know, I've heard of people and had conversations with people that have almost been refused their wedding day for annual leave, or they've been given the wedding day and told to come back the day after.
It's not sustainable, is it?
It's not. When you treat people like that, it's not. Because I was saying that if that was me, after the wedding, they just don't see me anymore because I won't be here to work. I won't be.
Yeah. Facts. All right. Perhaps we can end on, again, without disrupting patient consent or anything, the kind of people that you see coming through, the people that you treat here in East London. Any reflections on that? And as someone who lives, born and raised in East London, how has that been now?
Love it. I think coming back to work in Newham is like the best decision and the best opportunity that I've had, because I see people, not just people that look like me, people that look like people I grew up with, very ethnically diverse area, very just a lot of people that are vulnerable, I would say. You know, there's a lot of poverty in the area, lots of things to do with drugs, alcohol, immigration problems, you know, you've got the language barriers, all sorts of things. And I think for me, being able to work with certain people gives me an opportunity to advocate for particular people, or allows people to be comfortable to be themselves if they, you know,
see themselves.
So I've had an incident when there was this Nigerian sort of older lady that wasn't really saying too much. She had quite a poor prognosis, but I don't know, she just didn't feel very comfortable in the hospital. And you know, a lot of my other colleagues, fantastic doctors anyway, that I was working with at the time, very British, very middle class sort of, and she wasn't really opening up to them. But then I introduced myself, I said my name, I took time to talk to her. Oh, I don't really like the food on the ward. Oh, let me show you on Uber Eats, you know, there's this Nigerian restaurant, their jollof is good. It seems it doesn't have to be about the medicine, but it's about her just having someone that was able to relate to her. And I remember I actually saw her taking a stroll when I was walking home, because I live so locally, one time, and she stopped me and she was like, thank you so much, like, you know, just the time that you took, it really made a difference, I really appreciate it, like, God will bless. She started praying for me on the road, as they do. And I just think things like that is what I like about being able to work in Newham, because I'm able to kind of, I guess, be that people that maybe feel overlooked. I'm able to be like, well, hold on, we're not doing this, or let me go out the extra mile for them, and things like that. I really.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I had a similar-ish experience. So my very first job in the NHS, 20 odd years ago now, ward clerk at King George's Hospital, also mental health ward.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what category I was on. But yeah, I saw a woman who, in my opinion, was just speaking in tongues, as a West African Pentecostal Christian thing. And the clinical staff around it were just, she's having an episode, she's manic, etc., etc. And then, seeing her out on the road around East London afterwards, I didn't say hello because I was like, young then, and I'm not clinically trained, so etc. But that must fill you with a great sense of pride and belonging and just community champion, etc., etc.
I think even there was another incident where there was this guy, I won't get into it too much because it's for other reasons, but there was this guy that was like related in gang sort of related things, very high risk of being stabbed and all those kind of things, and he wasn't taking the medication that we gave him because it would put him at high risk of bleeding if he was stabbed.
Wow. And
he wasn't really forthcoming with this information as much to like the consultants and stuff, and everyone's like, eye roll, can't be bothered sort of thing. And he didn't say all of this, by the way. I had to get all of this out of him. So I realised something was a bit funny. I drew the curtain. When he told me he went to school down the road, and I was like, I did too. And he was just like, yeah, whatever, you don't even know my life, and all that kind of stuff. So I remember I drew the curtain, I just changed my voice. I was like, bro, what's going on? Come on, like, just chat to me. Like, what's happening? Like, I might be one of the doctors looking after you, but at the end of the day, I don't think you're, I don't know, like this monster or something. We have to, what's going on? And we just spoke about, oh, I went to this school, oh, he went to this school, oh, do I know this person to tell? Yeah, this person. And by that's when I ended up realising, oh, I don't take the medication because I'm currently homeless and this is the situation. And then eventually, you know, he said, when I left and we had that long conversation, I don't feel like, I might still go back into the same situation, but I feel like being able to speak to you and have that level of engagement has made me feel so much better about even that. So those experiences, I remember I shared this in like my reflection group as well. Those experiences make it so worthwhile. Like living here. Yeah.
We're lucky to have you here.
Thank
and people
you.
like you, honestly, because as well, obviously before we started this, I was speaking about we had one of our first NHS England meetings here, which is a throwback, and obviously this place is an outstanding on the CQC.
Yeah.
So I really know and like love this place, and to have people from here, certain people of the community, is really important. We could go on and on, but I know you're busy, you've got loads of stuff to do, so I think we might end it there.
Cool.
Any other reflections on life in East London, your time over the years, with your sister who's moved out now? And that's an interesting dynamic as well, because there are some families who have a migration pathway out of the city or out of the area.
Honestly, every time people ask me, I love East London. Everybody wants me to move out to like Shropshire and all those places with them. I get cost of living and everything, but I'd rather stay here, to be honest, than move out. I think it's made me who I am today, definitely growing up here. It's a very colourful upbringing, growing up around different people from different backgrounds with different experiences. Like, some of the stories. When you say the things that happen in East London, people just feel like you're lying. Like, this place is a simulation. Sometimes I feel like that. And I really, really appreciate it. Even till now, I just love the kind of people that I meet, and talking about that simulation. I was talking to someone about an experience where I was arrested, and it's crazy. It was a bit of an emotional conversation. And going back to something I said earlier about things being normalised for you, I remember at the time I felt like, oh well, every black boy gets arrested, so it's just my turn now. And life has caught up to me. Have you had any out of like similar moments like that where you reflect, actually the stuff we experienced was a bit deep, was a bit traumatic, but I've developed some kind of resilience and way of thinking about it that's actually a little bit where maybe I need to decouple it at some point, or you think actually no, you're fine? And no, I had this discussion with my friend that our school experience, for the most part, it's not normal to see your friends get stabbed in front of you. It's not normal for the police to show you those videos at assembly, to be like, oh yeah, this is the video of your friend getting, has anyone seen these people? It's not normal for, for people to get run up on inside the school, and the school having to like kind of shut down for that. So there are a lot of things that aren't, the violence, I think, is what sometimes when you grow up in an area like Newham, violence can become very normalised, because people are just like, oh yeah, this person got killed and stabbed last week, or oh yeah, this person got killed and stabbed. There was a point where people were discussing it when I was in school as if it was a score point. So it's like it's 2-0 Custom House to Stratford. This is people that have done, that kind of thing. And I think there is an element of me that definitely was wrong, but I think even having that experience, you realise it's not a normalised experience, and it's then starting to think, okay, in what ways has that affected you, or sort of maybe changed you? And I don't know, I don't, apart from knowing that it's not normal, I can't actually say that I've...
Yeah, and this might be the most tenuous, like, random link at all, but do you think some of that comes through in the patients that come through your doors, or those are other, maybe poverty experiences that then inform or influence, deteriorations in mental health, etc.?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think like there are poverty experiences, and I think we do know, and sort of data has showed that if you're living in like, I don't know, in poverty and you're struggling, that's directly going to affect your mental health. Like, honestly, people don't understand how much just being poor and being a minority is like, so it's such a big contributing factor. It's a double whammy to your mental health, or even in terms of physical health. I always say that when you're thinking about how you're going to provide for family here, family back home, doing this, you don't pay attention. You're not thinking about what is going on in your body. That's why you can have, I've had certain, I like to call them aunties and uncles, it's just fellow African older men and women come into A&E with like blood pressure of 200 and something. They're like, I haven't taken a day off in 6 days because I have to work 3 or 4 jobs for this, that, or the third, and
just to live.
Yeah, just to live, and it really does. Like, if anyone would tell you, Michael Marmot's fantastic at telling us all this, poverty and health is like 1 and 2, and it definitely comes through in the patients that come through the door. And it's a shame, because that's the frustration, that your job as a doctor is to fix people's physical health, but so much of their physical health is linked to their social problems. So that can be a frustration. That's why I'm really like public health. I did public health masters, global health policy. All those things I think are just so important.
Yeah, and it's definitely for another day and another conversation. As to how we fix those problems, because fixing someone's immediate sickness is a short-term fix, but there are wider things we need to think about as a society. Anyway, Yemisi, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. It was lovely having this conversation.
Appreciate it.
Lovely. Take care.